Legato Financial Group, I want to get that right, has a retirement plan that is designed individually just for you. We'll talk about that with Justin Jenkins, who is the president of Legato Financial Group. Justin, welcome in.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, there's so many questions I have for you because we talk to a lot of retirement experts, but you guys seem to be very individualized as far as this isn't a cookie cutter plan. This is made individually for everyone, and you have like a proprietary process. Explain that.
Correct. Yeah, so our team has worked over the last decade or so of really refining and developing this process that focuses on the 5 core areas of a proper retirement plan. It's not just one area. We have found that all of these areas have to work together to give us a real good plan. So it starts with income planning through Social Security optimization and pension planning. Goes from there into investment planning and investment strategies that are designed for retirement. Those strategies really differ from your accumulation years into your distribution years. So it kind of goes into the second world there. From there, and realistically, right now in 2022, where we're at, I think tax planning might be the most important thing that we could be doing. So we really have a good tax program. From there, we go into healthcare planning and legacy planning. So those 5 core areas all come together to give you the LFG retirement blueprint.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about something you touched upon there, Justin, which is taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know they're eventually going to go up. Things are going to change pretty quickly. For those out there who say, well, I have a retirement plan, I wasn't thinking about taxes.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Well, I think it's really important that you have a proper tax plan. Most people that we see, most people going into retirement have saved in these tax-deferred vehicles, so 401ks, IRAs, things of that nature. And those are tax-deferred, not tax-free, so meaning that you're going to pay taxes later. And historically, we've seen that people tend to think that later in life they're going to be in a lower tax bracket, but we're finding more and more times than not that people are actually in a larger tax bracket later in life. And if you don't have a proper tax plan for that, you could really end up having higher taxes in your later 70s and 80s.
And you guys, from what I understand at Legato Financial Group, you've got a strategic tax plan. Like there's ways to, I don't want to say offset, but maybe mitigate those tax, you're gonna get them, but if you have strategies, you can actually keep more money in your pocket, correct?
Correct.
Basically.
Yeah, and you said my favorite word. I teach tax planning all the time, and I always make sure to tell everybody that the name of the game is mitigation, not elimination. We're definitely going to have to pay taxes, but we want to pay it at the lowest rate possible, at the lowest amount possible. We find that there's micro tax planning and there's macro tax planning. Micro is what most all Americans do and what most people are doing right now, given that it's tax season. So that's what did you do last year and how do you pay as least amount of tax possible based off of what you did in the past. Macro tax planning projects out into the future to say, hey, we know what your Social Security is going to look like. We know what your pension is going to look like and all your investments. But how do we take all of that information and then start projecting into the future to see where is an opportunity for us to start mitigating those taxes that we know are coming.
So let's talk about retirement accounts and specifically 401ks.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about 401ks, talk about how they may be taxed. Also, how people can use, you can use those also strategically, correct?
Yeah, correct. So any money that comes out of a 401k or IRA or any similar nature to those, they are actually taxed as ordinary income. So that is, at the end of the day, that's typically your highest tax level that you're going to end up paying. We work in this country as a marginal tax system, and it's kind of a tax ladder, if you will. And whenever you pull those dollars out, they're going to be taxed at some of those highest marginal brackets that you're in. So therefore, if you happen to be in some high brackets later in life, you'll end up paying a tremendous amount of tax on the dollars that are pulled out of those accounts.
I was looking at something you talked about there in the beginning of the segment. You were talking about the blueprint that includes 5 different parts, right?
Correct.
So these parts, I was looking here. Healthcare, too, is something that's a question mark. Yeah. That's got to be figured in, doesn't it? Because I think people don't realize that could be, hopefully not, but it could be significant, could really get into your retirement plans, right?
Absolutely. So we're seeing if someone wants to retire early, maybe at 62, that's typically a big age that people start thinking about retirement. But from 62 to 65, you have a gap there that you might need to be on some sort of individual health insurance plan until Medicare kicks in at 65. So I think the proper health planning during that time is very important. But then also on top of that, once you get to Medicare, there's some strategies that you really have to make sure you're deploying. And sometimes in tax planning and income planning, it can end up, if you're not careful, increase your Medicare premiums later in life. So you really want to watch out for that as well.
Justin, when I talk to an expert like you, when I talk to someone who knows the business so well, and investments and taxes and healthcare and all these things that go into a retirement plan, I go, wow, I realize how I need your help. What would you say to those out there? And there are people, and you know this, that are saying, I can handle this myself. I'm a do-it-yourselfer. If you're doing your basement or carpet, that's one thing. This is different because there are strategies, and if you're not aware of them, and also some of the tax laws and that kind of thing, you can put yourself in a little bit of a hole. What would you say to do-it-yourselfers out there?
Well, I think you just have to make sure you're really doing your best effort in looking and researching everything that you can, because the fact that there are so many different things that kind of come together in a proper retirement plan. A lot of times you have these unintended consequences when you do try to go at it alone. Not saying that it's not possible; it absolutely is. I sometimes reference this as building a home. A lot of people could probably go out and contract a home themselves, but they might fall into some problems by doing that, maybe not getting the right certificates, maybe not getting the right licenses, things like that. So it's very similar in the fact that, yes, you could do it, but there's a lot of different pieces that you need to really be watching out for.
So, Justin, tell me how the process works. If someone has been listening to you and they're impressed as I am, and they say, okay, I'm interested in the Legato Financial Group, what kind of material should they gather? Do they meet with you one-on-one? How does it all work?
Yeah, absolutely. We have multiple events that we host, so people could always come to an event, a live event that we host here in Louisville. You can find that on our website, of course, but also you can always just call in. You schedule an appointment with us, and we're going to be able to sit down with you. You gather in, bring all of your income portfolios that you might have, your Social Security statements, pension information, things like that. Of course, all of your investments as well, and then maybe your last tax return. If you bring all of that stuff together to sit down with us, we can have a really fruitful meeting and figure out, what does this look like for you? Once we do that, we start looking at everything. It takes us about 2 to 3 weeks to design a rough draft of the blueprint plan that we look at. And from there, then we can bring it back to you and show you what our thoughts are and some optimization techniques that we feel like might be good for you, and then we can go from there with it.
Justin, you being in this business, I'm curious. I have to ask you this question. As I grow older and get closer to retirement myself, I think my idea of what an ideal or a dream retirement changes. When you're young, you're like, oh, I want to cruise, and I'm going to have my own jet and all this stuff. And then when I get older, I say, I just want to spend time with my sons and family, and maybe I want to be closer to home. So maybe perhaps retirement is more affordable than I thought. And then you may find some of your clients may say, you know what, I can't afford to travel a lot. What do you find is the trend now? I'm curious.
We see it both ways. We are seeing more and more people that want to continue, keeping about the same income that they're used to receiving during their working years, because they do want to do more traveling. They want to spend time with family, and we're finding a lot of people have family across the country, sometimes even across the world. So they want to travel and visit with them. It is kind of across the board. You get some people that want to maybe stay local and stay home, but a lot of people are really wanting to keep that income high so they can enjoy the retirement that they've worked so hard for.
I want to circle back to something we began with, Justin, if you don't mind, as we talked about this proprietary plan that you have. That's important, individualized plan, because I do think that there's a lot of companies, some of the big, large companies who say, okay, this is the way we do it with everyone. That's important to you, isn't it? Because everyone's life is different, and everyone's expectations going into retirement that you just talked about, that's different as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, because what we see, and I think the reason that we see this trend of the maybe cookie-cutter approach in investments in particular is because of the fact that whenever you're maybe a little bit younger, or even whenever you're contributing to a 401k, you're used to just putting money into this broad market plan, if you will, and it works pretty well. But as you start to accumulate a large amount of assets over time, it gets really, really important that you have a plan that's really designed for you and exactly what you need. So that could mean a little bit heavier into a stock portfolio, whereas a typical index might not have that, or vice versa. So there's a lot of things to look at whenever we're building that out. That's why we design every single plan, and it's really tailored for each individual person.
Justin, thank you so much. Really impressive, man. You got a lot of knowledge there. If you're impressed as well, once again, it's Legato Financial Group. He is Justin Jenkins. He is the president. Give them a call today. There's the information up on your screen.